All right, well, good morning, everyone. So Ms. Michaels is going to review the agenda with you. I'm not sure who among you is going to be presenting Tuesday night. Mr. Bedard, is it you? Usually does finance?
Yeah, I'm happy to do it.
All right, terrific. So Kara, you can proceed. We are being recorded and we'll post this meeting on the website following its conclusion.
Thank you, Dr. Yannicone. So the first agenda item, good morning, everybody, is an enrollment study update contract presented by the Montgomery County Planning Commission. There was an enrollment study that was done in April of 2014 by the Montgomery County Planning Commission. At that time, it did provide a 10-year projection that would take us through 23-24. During some things that have happened in that time frame when we got the enrollment projection done is the building of the new Enfield. So there was a grade configuration change. So we're looking to do an update of those projections and that enrollment study using the Montgomery County Planning Commission so that we have good data, benchmark data to compare against. So that we can make sure that our numbers that we project out moving forward for education purposes are all in line. This will also be helpful because obviously there was a lot of change during the pandemic between virtual and in person. So I think this will give us also some clarity on that as well. So the contract, which was attached through board docs, and if you would like me to send you a copy of the contract via email, I can do that as well if you're having trouble getting into board docs still. The Monco Planning Commission pays for 25% of the study. The district pays for 75%. So the total cost of the contract is $9,828. Our obligation to that is $7,371. They will use the October, like I said, the October 1st enrollment data. We will receive school enrollment projections by school for a 10-year period, detailed data on growth trends, housing development, and enrollment scenarios. At this point, based upon the board policy that we're following with contracts, this would not need to be put on the board agenda for approval. Dr. Yannicone would sign off on this contract and we would submit it pending any comments by the committee at this point. Is there any questions?
I have a couple quick ones. Let me ask all three because I think they string together. One is I just want confirmation that this is like within, in your experience, the price range that you would expect. Like there's no big changes since the last time a contract like this was reviewed. Second would be understanding when the last time our study was done. And is this the standard time frame? It seems like it is the right time given the pandemic, but I just want to make sure that we're kind of in the standard timing. And the last question related would be, how accurate were the last studies, and is this the same vendor, and do we have confidence?
Sure. So Dr. Yannicone, do you want to take any of those or do you want me to move forward?
Why don't you answer? I know you've been studying this and then I can always supplement.
Okay. So on the first one, as far as the price range is concerned, yes, it falls in line with expectations on what the price range should be. At my previous district, I actually went through an enrollment study with the Planning Commission at Monco. So yes, it's in line with the price range. As far as the understanding of the last time the study was done, it was done for the 14-15 school year. So the report was done in April of 2014. They used, again, the October 1st data, and they projected out for 10 years. So it would take us through 2023, 2024. One of the things, like I had just mentioned, that I saw looking at the study is that the new Enfield building and the grade reconfiguration happened. So us looking at projections by building using the old study gives us the grade configuration of K1 with the old Enfield numbers. So this will put us in line. They also give us in the study, they also give you grade by grade. So that'll be a good benchmark to look back at how the last study compared to the updated numbers, so we can do it by grade. But as far as by building, this will give us a better snapshot by building, again, to assess with future education decisions and staffing. The last one, I'm going to actually punt this to Dr. Yannicone on the accuracy of the enrollment study, just because of my tenure here.
Sure.
And not understanding that piece of it.
It was fairly accurate. Our numbers are up by about 10 to 12 students. For example, we have a bubble right now at Erdenheim. The fourth grade is about 223 students currently, and that is a fairly significant bubble. We have been historically seeing a drop between 8th and 9th grade enrollment of about 10%. That's the result of students and families who make the decision at the end of 8th grade to go to one of the myriad private schools in the region. We're working on that. We actually had a meeting last week between the middle and high school administration and myself to look at what might be the factors in that decision making. But I do have a question longer term around the bubble when it hits the middle school. Currently, we are using every classroom space available at the middle school. And we are also using every classroom and office space at the high school. So I'm a little concerned and would like to have this study so that we could start to plan out for when this bubble is going to hit 6th, 7th, 8th grade and beyond. And that's why typically I would wait, because it's a 10-year study, I might want to wait to do the update until a year and a half from now, the beginning of 23. However, given where we are in enrollment at the lower grades, I would like to have a little bit more advance notice for middle and high school so that if we do need to make any recommendations for expansion, we can do it.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
I have a question, and it may be a very silly question, but I need to ask it anyway. Does the study also encompass current and future real estate development? Right now, I'm across the street from a development of 32 new houses which will bring quite a few families. I know it is projected, and it's still probably on the table for the Halls Lane development. So I'd like to know, in terms of this study, will current real estate development and future real estate possible development will also be considered as part of this study?
That would be a yes. It does encompass that. They do look at that, and they give projections based upon what the development is zoned for, how that impacts, and what school it in. Well, obviously it'll just be going up through the grade levels, but it will give a projection out of how many anticipated students we should expect from those developments.
Okay, thank you.
And just, oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to sort of jump on that. One of the reasons why we like the Montgomery County Planning Commission as the vendor for this particular study is that they have a personal investment in the results of the study. That's why they pay for 25% of it, because traffic planning, shopping area planning, there are other elements of county planning that are impacted by their expected school enrollment. So it's a partnership in many ways that benefits us both.
I was just going to ask, when you talk about current zoning, so this wouldn't necessarily capture the Hawes Lane project, since that project is going to depend on a change in zoning. So is that correct, that it wouldn't necessarily give us an understanding of what would happen if that property were developed into townhomes?
From my experience, what they look at is to see if it's a 55 and older community, if it's multi-occupancy homes or structures. So they'll take that all into consideration. And just going back to what Dr. Yannicone mentioned, is they have their fingers on the pulse of the latest and greatest in the land developments and what's happening within townships, because they work with townships and you have to go through the planning commission. They have an understanding of what that future development looks and may have some information that's not readily available to the township and district or to the district prior to things getting approved. So they'll have that understanding and the ability to incorporate that understanding into the study.
Okay, thank you.
And Carrie, it might be worth our while in speaking with the Planning Commission, just to reiterate that we'd like to make sure that they're factoring in the Hawes Lane property, given that there may be some zoning changes.
Absolutely. Daniel Farina is the person that got promoted to oversee all of these studies. He is the person that I worked with at my previous district. So we work very closely together. I've been in contact with him. There is a initial meeting that he likes to get together with myself and you to have some discussion to ensure that they're capturing everything that we're looking for. So we will have that initial meeting prior to them starting or finalizing the report.
Are there, for members of the board, are there any other questions beyond the Hawes Lane property that you would want us to bring to that meeting? Questions or concerns about anything in Springfield Township that might impact enrollment?
I can't think of any at the moment.
I don't have any.
Okay. I have taken a look at where enrollments are in the parochial and private schools, because as you might imagine, if one of those schools were to close, then there would be an impact on our enrollment. But they all appear to be fairly healthy at this point with their enrollment. You never know 10 years from now, but as for now, they're doing okay. All right, so for that agenda item, we're going to proceed with me signing the contract and get that enrollment study started. I'll include that as an information item in my administrative report on Tuesday night, but it won't be an agenda item for board approval because, again, it falls under that threshold. Okay. All right.
The second agenda item is ALC Schools LLC. It's alternative transportation contract. So in some discussions with Mr. Nate Bray, our Director of Transportation, he brought this forward to me. This company has been used by North Penn, Council Rock, and is going to be used with Upper Marion starting this year. The reason that Mr. Bray brought this forward to me for discussion, and we're bringing it forward to you, is this is a supplement or an alternative of a transportation contract that the district can get into a contract with. There's pricing guidelines that are set in order for us to have supplemental or additional transportation contracting. It is set up similar, it probably exactly as the IU is, where when we contract out with the intermediate unit, the intermediate unit does not have a fleet of drivers, does not have a fleet of vehicles. Instead, what they do is they work with local contractor companies to set up when we have routes or we have things to do. They will work with local vendors. They have a contract with those vendors, but the IU is the point and person or the point organization for us to do the routing with. This organization is set up the same exact way. They don't own the vehicles. They don't employ the drivers. Instead, they contract out with local vendors. They go through within the contract. Once you read through the contract, they do work with a co-op purchasing agency. Their corporation is based out of California, but they have dispatch hubs within 20 states. They're looking to, in the near future, create a hub in Philly because they're starting to come into the Pennsylvania network. One of the things in speaking with Mr. Bray is that obviously with the pandemic and just the national bus driver shortage that is seen everywhere with every school district, this would be an alternative for the district to use kind of as a plan B. In the sense that if we need to add routes or do anything and we end up having some issues contracting out because of driver shortage, this just gives us another option. There's no obligation up front for us to enter into this contract. We would not be charged until we set up routes, there's a pricing structure. One of the things that I discussed with Nate is that I obviously want to put this through legal because I have some questions to make sure that all COVID-related activities are covered within the contract. And also because this is a new vendor that we're dealing with, we want to make sure that there's no legalities in the wording that they have on their contract. We would be looking to bring this forward once legal review has happened at the September 1st interim board meeting for approval. And again, there would be no, it's open. We would not be charged anything unless we did routing. So we're not obligated to pay anything just for entering into the contract. It gives us a supplement or backup if we need to look at another source in order to provide routing for us for the school year. Just to give you an update, so there are no concerns as far as in-district routing, and that's all taken care of through our normal services. So our bus drivers and any specialized placement contracts that we have with the IU now. So that's taken care of. This would be dependent on how the non-public school routes come in. If there's additional routes that are needed that we can't satisfy in-house first. Obviously, Nate always looks to route within the district, within district drivers first, and then looks to outsource second. So again, this would just be a supplemental contract and alternative. Again, we did our due diligence with North Penn, with Council Rock. We will be keeping our eye on Upper Marion. He's in contact with them as far as the service that they have. But we got great references from both North Penn and Council Rock with this company. So at this time, any questions?
It was a comprehensive review. We're good.
Thank you. I just wanted to compliment Mr. Bray in particular. You all know there's a driver shortage, and what we're trying to do here is cover ourselves as best we can with multiple options in the event that we run short. For example, if drivers get ill or we have any kind of an issue with routing being covered by the existing groups, this would be a third option for us. Okay, I think we can go to number 3.
Okay, so this is our last agenda item. You'll see it says it's kind of encompassing a big broad topic because it goes into, we received, and it was highly due to the pandemic. Obviously, mail was slow, so this would cover the 1920 tax year for the school taxes. When I first came aboard, we received a number of email requests and information from taxpayers. I shouldn't say a number, it's about 4 total. They were referred to me by Bonnie Davis, the tax collector, because at the time everything had been turned over to Tax Claim Bureau, everything had been liened. So there were some requests from individual taxpayers regarding the fact that they had submitted payment in a timely fashion, but their property ended up getting liened because the check wasn't accepted, it wasn't deposited. There was some miscommunication between the tax office. And at this point, the recommendation or the feedback that they got from Bonnie was that they had to come to the district because 1, she didn't have the authority to waive anything. And number 2, that the money had already been transferred to the district, so it was out of her hands. So we have 4 residents total that are requesting either a refund because they've been liened and had to pay interest and penalty when they had proof and had documentation that they paid within discount period or within face and should have never been liened. And then there's also a resident that has not paid but has been liened because his check has been bounced back twice now. He sent a certified check, not bounced back. It hasn't been cashed for whatever reason. And again, because it's after the tax year and the books have been closed on Bonnie's end, she has referred them back to the school district. In talking with legal, in order for penalty and interest to be waived or liened, that has to be done through board action. So in the interest of not putting individual taxpayers' names out there and having that type of discussion in this meeting, what I will tell you is that the total that we are looking as far as refunding is about $4,000, and that's interest and penalty that has been paid for taxpayers to avoid being liened and going into foreclosure. So they've worked with the Montgomery Tax Claim Bureau. The other one would be a waiver of about $1,000 because they've this is the situation where they've sent a certified check and it hasn't been cashed. So I have to redirect them to tax claim. They're trying to deal with Bonnie and they need to be dealing with tax claim. But there was a little bit of some miscommunication and not prompt replies in order for the taxpayers to be able to settle these disputes. And it was, you know, pandemic was a hard time in working with in-person collections. And I think just the overwhelmingness of online. So with this, the recommendation would be to have these 4 instances put on the board agenda. What I'm going to do after this meeting is provide you all with an email that identifies the parcel, the address, the homeowner, and basically the amount that was paid, the amount that of interest and penalty that was paid that should not have been paid due to the timing of when they proofed out that they actually sent everything. And I do have correspondence that when Bonnie did finally get back to them, there was back and forth between the taxpayer and Bonnie's office. So I do have all of that information. I'm more than happy to share that with the committee. So if you would like to read through it, but at this point, we're looking to move forward to refund these individuals for interest and penalty that they paid and really shouldn't have had to pay due to the pandemic and the online situation. Also with the other resident that we're looking at that hasn't paid, it would just be a redirection of telling them they need to settle with the tax claim bureau the amount that they should have paid at discount, and then it would be me writing a letter to tax claim saying to waive the penalty and interest that has accrued since then. And then moving forward, one of the conversations I've had with Dr. Yannicone as we go through policy review is that at my previous district, we did have a policy regarding this so that we had something to go back to when these requests came. I'm working really, really hard. It's obviously Bonnie's last year, so it'll be a transition with a new tax collector. I'm working really hard that we'd like to get these situations resolved before it goes into lien and before it comes over to the district. Ultimately, the tax collector is responsible for handling these situations instead of having it, you know, kind of extend out as long as it did, to avoid having penalties and letters and the angst of taxpayers having to get this when they, you know, feel like they've done their due diligence. So my office is working, we're working now with Bonnie to try to get this tax year where it needs to be and make sure that we're timely with any refunds or issues prior to December 31st coming up. And then most definitely when the new tax collector transitions in, we will work very diligently with that person to make sure that we can get stuff resolved in a timelier manner. So at this point, are there any questions?
No,
I don't have any.
no.
Ms. Michaels, everything sounds right here. How material is the dollar amount?
The total that we will be refunding it's less than $5,000 between the 3, and then the waiver is about $1,000.
Okay, thank you.
And again,
Good.
these are funds that we have received. So this isn't additional funds that the tax district has to absorb because of anything. It's money that has come to us from the Tax Claim Bureau because the residents have paid Tax Claim Bureau in order to stop the fees from accumulating and to stop the collection letters.
Great, thank you.
So with this, there will be 4 motions on this upcoming board meeting to refund the penalty and interest on 3 and to waive the penalty and interest on 1. And the way that I'll write the motion, it'll be by the parcel. It won't be by the homeowner's name. That's the reference. Okay. Dr. Yannick, do you have anything?
Yeah, I just had what would the 3 of you like Ms. Michaels to send you an email with the details of the homeowners, or is the parcel number sufficient at the board motion?
For me, the parcel number is fine.
I agree. I don't necessarily need the details. If the backstory and everything checks out, and it sounds like it does, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Just want to not do that unless we need to.
Okay.
All right. Those are all of the items that we had for you at this time. I wanted to let you know, if you look in the agenda at future meetings, our goal is that by that date, mid-October, we would be in a position, we'll have additional information for you on ARPSR. We are continuing to get guidance from the federal government on the use of what is sometimes termed ESSER 3, right? And we had provided you a report in the spring as part of our budget presentation in May on ESSER 1 and ESSER 2, the initial 2 buckets of money. So our goal is that by mid-October, we'll have that ESSER 3 plan for you to look at and consider. Our goal is to have that submitted to the state around the holidays this fall. So that's why we've tentatively scheduled the next finance meeting for mid-October. And by then we may also have some early numbers as far as what the state is going to be asking us to do with regard to Act 1 going into the next fiscal year.
Also, an agenda topic, I spoke to Jamie Doyle from PFM. She brought to my attention that there's for the 2021-22 school year, there are 2 bonds that are callable. And what she would like to do is present we're going to call it the 2022 refinancing plan for these 2 bonds. So she'll go through that process and a timeline and time it all out with board action and what needs to be done at that time. So that'll also be an agenda item for the October Finance Committee as well. And then I think we're good. Actually, she said that we don't have any bonds callable, I think, until 2024 or maybe a little bit earlier than that. So there will be a gap in time, about a year, where we're not doing any refinancing because our bonds they wouldn't be up to be due to be refinanced.
So with those future topics in mind, is there anything else that you have questions about that you'd like Ms. Michaels or I to be thinking about between now and October?
I don't have anything.
Nor do I.
Thanks. You're okay. Mr. Bedard, you're nodding, I think. You're okay?
Yeah, it's harder to navigate the phone. Yes.
No, I understand. I understand. All right. Well, thank you all very much. We can adjourn the meeting.